Okay, I am gearing up to make something from the Princess Healthy Treats, and this is actually listed as a dinner recipe or shareable entree, but it's called Belle's Cheese Souffle. And there's no picture, so nothing to share with you. I think in the song Be Our Guest, Lumiere mentions cheese souffle when he's like spitting out the verses as one of the foods that they make. I think that I have to listen to it again, but that sounds right to me. Anyway, this is my first time attempting to ever make a souffle. So I'm a little excited and a little nervous. I know, and it even mentions in here about being careful when it's cooking because you don't want it to fall. So you have to watch, opening the oven door and shutting it and things like that. Like it says, if you slam the oven too hard, it can lead to a collapse. So I don't want my souffle to collapse, but I would say take your bets now as to whether this thing does collapse or not. I don't want to jinx myself either way. So I'm going to just be as surprised as everybody else as to what happens with this. But there's a few steps involved, but we're about to get started in putting this together. So the first step is to take my souffle dish, and it says to kind of like coat it with butter. This is softened butter that I left sit out for a couple hours. Just get it nice and soft. Maybe not a couple hours, probably more like 75 minutes. It says to spread 2 tablespoons, so I'm just going kind of thick with it. Because after this, I'm going to add some Parmesan cheese to it that's grated, and I'm going to let it stick to the butter. So I'm really just going to town here. As always, I followed proper sanitation with cleaning my hands very thoroughly before making them gooey and covered in butter. I just bought pre-grated Parmesan in the store instead of buying a whole block to shred. So I'm gonna pour the 1/4 cup in. Kind of work to get this coated around the edges. And like I said, I put my cutting board down so I have something to kind of catch the Parmesan that I figured would fall out. So now I'm grating my cheese that goes in the souffle. The recipe says to use a semi-firm French cheese such as Gruyere or Comte. Or is it Comte? Comte? Okay. I apologize deeply to anybody that speaks French out there. I think it is actually an absolutely beautiful language. But pronunciation and languages were never a strong skill of mine. I do try to learn the proper way to say things, and sometimes I fail, sometimes I do not. You can see how this is kind of coming along as I shred it. And my oven is preheated while I'm doing this, if you hear the ding ding. I need a 1/4 cup of this, so I'm only gonna shred just a little bit more because I think we're getting close to that. You can have a little extra on hand just in case. I might toss in a little extra. If you've followed any of my other recipes, I swear anything that I add cheese to, I feel like there's never enough cheese flavor that comes through. But this cheese does have a very more distinct smell than like a cheddar or something as well, so that might help. I'm actually not I like cheese, but I'm not a big stinky cheese person. Is anybody? So if you are, let me know. All right. I'm gonna just put this aside then for now. So I've got this grated, and I think that this is a 1/4 cup. That's a 1/4 cup. That's definitely enough. A little bit extra in case I need it, but I'm gonna put this aside and work on the next step. Okay, so I try to position this so hopefully you can see this well. Right now I'm melting some butter in a saucepan. Once this is melted, I need to add some flour and whisk it until the flour is absorbed, and then I need to add some milk, gradually stirring it, and then when it's done, I switch to accident spill. I'll have to clean that up later because this is about done. You're not supposed to let it brown. Get this melted. All right. Let's add the flour. All right. This is to whisk this. Oh, I've got flour everywhere. Okay. Not off to the best start. We'll get it though, right? Till the flour smell goes away. About a minute. Add the milk in a thin, steady stream. says instead of a thin steady stream, you can add like a couple tablespoons at a time, but I'm gonna just kind of do this. I think I'll do that. Just pour a little bit in, give it a good stir. Instead of trying to keep that thin steady stream, which is not going very well for me. I'm gonna stir this till completely smooth, which I think I'm getting close here. Checking it for any more imperfections. That looks pretty smooth to me, but let's give it another little whisk here. And it says to switch to a rubber spatula. You're supposed to stir until the sauce comes to a simmer. Then reduce the heat and continue stirring and let it simmer for like 3 minutes. Has anybody made soufflés before? If so, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear about your soufflé experience. I'm questioning this and what a simmer is, because I thought like it was simmering a little bit. Usually that's, you know, to me that's like little pops of stuff. Oh, there we go. All right, so now that this is simmering here, I'm going to add some salt. And now I'm adding some pepper. All right, let's mix this all up with that. Now I'm to transfer this to a bowl and let it cool while I work on the next step. All right, so here's my next step. I'm combining egg whites, which I do worry a little yolk might have got in there anyway, with one other ingredient. I've never revealed exact recipes. And I'm gonna let those whip until stiff peaks of form. So my blender's going with the egg whites in the background, so I'm adding in the next ingredient to this. It says to whisk it in. Then I have my egg yolks from the egg whites, and I'm supposed to whisk them in one at a time. So, a lot of noise here today. Since it's one at a time, I put them all in separate bowls, the egg yolks. Last egg yolk. I'm doing this by hand. It doesn't say anything about using an electric mixer, so give it a good whirl. Ready? Get my arm exercise for the day. Ready, set, go. All right. I think that looks good. I'm gonna go check on the yolks again. All right. Firm, glossy peaks of my egg whites. I'm supposed to stir in a third of the egg white mixture. I know the egg whites help make it rise, so I don't want to over stir this, but I want to make sure everything's blended well. All right, now we add the cheese. Fold these in until just combined. I think that looks pretty just combined. Now to get the bowl out of the fridge. Smooth with the spatula, so I will do that. Alright, so I'm going to place this on a baking sheet and put it in the oven, and it says to bake for 35 to 40 minutes. And the test will be very carefully making sure it doesn't fall. Fingers crossed. Okay, so we're about to take the souffle out of the oven. I'm going to be very careful. It doesn't look like that it's fallen, so I'm going to carefully pull this out and hope it doesn't collapse. All right, I'll set this down. Stay. Carefully close the oven. Huzzah! I think it stayed up in one piece. I'm impressed. Okay, time to taste test this. first thoughts, that's not bad. All right, I'll enjoy the whole thing. I'm in my review day mode from recipes I recently made. And today I wanted to review the final thoughts on this Belle's Cheese Souffle. It's funny, when I do the taste test, I'm always like, that's not bad. I think like, it's sometimes hard, you're recording like, oh, what are your thoughts, and you really sometimes need to eat something and keep eating it and kind of learn, do you like it or don't you like it? And I love this actually. This was really good. The cheese flavor was really nice in this and really tasty. I loved how the edges were just like the outsides of the souffle were a little bit more, I want to say chewy, or there was a nice texture to them. The insides were soft and kind of melt in your mouth. Probably could have let it cook for just a little bit longer. But this was my first cheese souffle and I am just super proud that the thing did not collapse on me. I was really excited by that, but I just thought it was really good. A couple of the other cheese dishes I've made, I think I've commented, I feel like the cheese flavor isn't really there, or it's a little hidden or gets a little lost, or, it's a little bland, but this was not. This was very, very flavorful. It was really good. When I was shredding the Gruyere cheese, or the Gruyere cheese, I was like, this kind of stinks a little bit, but I mean, it is, some cheese is meant to be a little stinky, and I'm not a big stinky cheese person, but in the taste with the Parmesan, like everything, it melted. It was so, so good. So I really, really enjoyed this, and I'm glad I made it. My other thing is, it listed as a main dish, and I think it could be a main dish, but I still think you would probably want something else with it, some sort of protein or something. But I do like that it could be a main dish, and it's definitely vegetarian if you're a vegetarian. All right, let's get into the rankings and review. The first are the ingredients on a scale of 1 to 5, and 1 is like low end, easy to find, inexpensive ingredients. 5 is high end, more expensive to find ingredients. And I'm gonna put this like 3.5. Right in the middle, 3.5, I think is good. Yeah. I was going to say right in the middle is 2.5, but 3.5. So I could find all this stuff. But it was a little expensive. Like the Gruyere cheese was kind of pricey. I think I paid like $15 for the block that I got. Then it shredded. Like some of the other things in there, not hard to find, but it's a little pricey for the souffle. Difficulty level on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being easy and 5 being really hard and difficult. I've got to give this a 4. There's a lot of steps involved with this. You have to melt the things on the saucepan and add the other things in. And you got to combine the egg whites and whip them, which, for me, I have a KitchenAid mixer, so it's easy for that. But you put it in there and put it together, and then you got to mix it together. I'm just reading to make sure I'm not doing it like anything that I'm thinking. But, you don't want to over mix it and stuff too, so that it rises. And then, of course, there's the souffle could crash, which is super anxious. So to me, I think this is definitely worth a 4. I think that most everyday people could attempt it. I could, I am no like classically trained French cook or any kind of formal training when it comes to cooking. So if I could do it, I think most people can, but it is a 4 because there's just a lot more steps involved than compared to some of the other recipes I've been doing on this challenge. And you have to be careful. And I was so nervous about that thing collapsing, like so nervous. And then would I make this again on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being never and 5 being absolutely loved it so much. I did love this a lot. I'm going to give it a 4. I'm trying to save 5s for things that I can definitely see myself making more often or putting in my rotation. I think the stress and the anxiety of this is something that like, I don't know if I would make it often, but I'm definitely going to make it again because I really did like it, And it actually, I want to note too, it heated up well. Like I was nervous that it wouldn't be as good because, it made quite a bit. And I was like, is it going to be as good like the next day or something, or 2 days later? And it did heat it up very well. I was surprised by that, honestly. I really didn't think it'd be something that would be good heated up, and it really was. So ranking it a 4, I always go back and forth between giving things 4 and 5 because I really did like it. And I don't think that it's something I'll make often, but I loved it so much. And I'm very proud of myself for making my first souffle. And I'm actually kind of excited maybe to try some other souffles now just to see. I think there's actually a couple more in some of the other cookbooks to test out. But anyway, cheese souffle, check it out.